Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to Chinochi Sports with another rendition of the I'm Not Lying podcast with your favorite host, Michael. And let's get into today's episode. So, we all heard about it. On Sunday, Cam Newton signed a 1-year, $1.05 million deal with Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots. And as I was scrolling through Twitter right after the news broke, there was a tweet that said someone explain this to me in NBA terms. And I'll give the person her credit. Made Her Season on Twitter said it's like D Rose to the Spurs. And that is absolutely correct. So I thought, with all the offseason moves that happened in the NFL, why not try to find the NBA comps? So here you go. Here are 5 NFL offseason moves and their NBA comparisons. Now, these are probably moves that won't happen, but just for the sake of argument, let's say that they do. So let's start with Cam Newton going to the New England Patriots is like D Rose going to the San Antonio Spurs. Versus focus on the players. They both relied heavily on their athleticism early in their career, and some say that they peaked early. Look at Derrick Rose in his first 3 years. First year, he won Rookie of the Year. In his second year, he became an All-Star. In his third year, he became an MVP, and you can argue he hasn't reached those heights since. Cam, his highest 3 passing yard games, as far as passing yards, came in his first 4 professional games. So, yeah. They had to develop skills after the injury. Rose, he had to become a better shooter, and he had to find smoother ways to attack the basket. Cam had to work on his passing accuracy, had to work on his release and his throwing motion. Both are going to great defensive-minded coaches whose style would prolong their productivity, and both of these coaches are the greatest coach of the generation. You have Pop. Pop's 5-1 in finals. He rests his players often, and he's a tough coach who runs an uptight ship. All of those things are stuff that would help prolong D Rose, as he gets more comfortable with his body and comfortable slashing to the basket. With Belichick, he's a 6-3 in Super Bowls. He likes to rely on the run and defense, and he's a tough coach who runs uptight ship. So that means Cam probably won't be putting his body in harm's way as much as he was in Carolina. Now, another thing of note here is we really don't know how much better it makes either team because it's an awkward fit for both sides. But to be honest, we'd be too excited to care. Look at Derrick Rose. He's not really a great shooter. He'll join probably DeMar DeRozan, who's also not a great shooter. Look at the old guard of all the great San Antonio guards to come before them. You have Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker, Danny Green, even George Hill and Patty Mills. All of them can shoot. D Rose and DeRozan cannot. When it comes to Cam, despite his injuries, he's still an athletic quarterback. The most rushing attempts by a New England quarterback and Belichick's tenure was 73 attempts by Matt Castle in the year that Tom Brady got hurt. Cam Newton has had 90 or more rush attempts in his first 8 seasons, and he had 100 or more rush attempts in 7 of those 8 years. Another thing of note here is for both of those teams, the Spurs and the Patriots, their championship windows have probably closed. Look at the Patriots. They lost in the wild card round for the first time since 2009. And there's a bunch of starters from that 2018 Super Bowl that are no longer there. Tom Brady, gone. James Devlin, gone. Chris Hogan, Rob Gronkowski, gone. Trent Brown, Trey Flowers, gone. Malcolm Brown, Kyle Van Noy, Ryan Allen, Stephen Gronkowski, gone. So it's a completely different team from who just took them to the promised land and got them their 6th ring 2 years ago. Then you have the Spurs, who are about to miss the playoffs, who would have missed the playoffs for the second time in 30 years. And the only player from that 2014 team who won the finals that is still on the team was Marco Bellinelli, and he didn't stay on the team. He just came back to the Spurs in 2018. So if you look at both of those teams, look at both of those players. they definitely will make an impact, but how much of an impact will they make? It depends on who you ask. Some say it doesn't make a difference. Some say it will be a huge difference, but don't expect nothing crazy. Here's number 2. Tom Brady going to Tampa Bay is like LeBron and Dwayne Wade going to the Pelicans. Look, if we just focus on Tom Brady and LeBron, they're both regarded as the greatest players in this generation. And they both get there with the secondary player. Tom Brady got there with Gronk. LeBron gets there with D Wade, hence why I mentioned him, whom they shared a lot of success with. And both teams, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Pelicans, recently lost franchise players who they underachieved with. Jameis Winston, he's had no appearances in the playoffs and only has had one winning season. AD, he's only had one playoff series win in this entire time with the Pelicans. Now, their presence should help limit the turnovers. Tampa Bay, their 41 turnovers led the NFL. New Orleans ranked 29th in turnovers per game. They turn over the ball a lot. Also, Father Time is supposed to be creeping up on Tom Brady and LeBron. So when that happens, they still have young talent and some veterans to rely on. If you look at Tom Brady, he can still pass the ball to the great weapons that he has around him, and O.J. Howard, Cameron Brate, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans. Look at LeBron going to the Pelicans. He'll have Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball, Drew Holiday, Zion Williamson, all those guys. Also, both teams have coaches who you're not really too sure about. I mean, look at Bruce Arians. When was the last time Bruce Arians did something where you said he's the top 10 coach in the league? When has Alvin Gentry done? So both of these coaches really are in a position right now to prove themselves and would have their career helped by having that great presence in the locker room. Now, number 3, you have Marcus Mariota going to Las Vegas. That would be like Andre Drummond going to Minnesota. They were both highly touted out of college. Mariota went second overall to Tennessee out of Oregon. Drummond went 9th overall to Detroit out of UConn. They both went to teams with storied histories and prominent figures. With Tennessee, you have Warren Moon, Earl Campbell, Eddie George, Steve McNair, Chris Johnson. With Detroit, you have Ben Wallace, the Ben Wallace and Billups era with Tayshaun Prince, Hamilton and all them. And then you have the Bad Boys era with Isaiah Thomas, Joe Dumars, Bill Laimbeer, Christian Laettner, Dennis Rodman, etc., etc. Now, neither of them has had a lot of success or really any success in the pros. Marcus Mariota, has a losing record in the regular season and he's 1-1 in the playoffs. Andre Drummond, he's 271 and 369 in the regular season, and he only has 2 playoff appearances with no playoff series victories. Now, the teams they are going to already have an established player in their position, but you can argue maybe the organization is like they're not too sure about them. If you look at Las Vegas, they have Derek Carr. Organizations like, yeah, look, over the past 2 seasons, yeah, you completed 70% of your passes for 8,000 yards, 40 touchdowns, 80 interceptions, posted a 97.2 passer rating. Yeah, that's cool, but we have no playoff appearances in those 2 years. We know we have a terrible defense. We know we've been sacked 80 times, but you have a 11-21 record in the regular season in the past 2 years. So maybe, if Oakland gets a little impatient with Derek Carr, they might move on to Marcus Mariota. And then you have Minnesota with Cat. Cat's unarguably the best player Minnesota has had since Kevin Love. You can argue he was even better than Kevin Love was, but I think that's an argument you're going to lose. Now, Cat, he is a 24-12 player, but he's only had 1 playoff appearance, and that was with Jimmy Butler, and they have been last in the division for the past 2 years. And let's not forget, Jimmy Butler called out Cat and all of the top players on the team for being soft and not wanting to win. Here's an interesting stat that I looked up. Here are the teammates that have played 70 or more games with Karl Anthony Towns and have won more than half of their games. Jimmy Butler, Jamal Crawford, Jeff Teague, and Taj Gibson. Oh, they all played on the same team that Jimmy Butler was a part of. That's something to note. Jimmy Butler said it himself. You guys don't want to win. We all heard all the stories when he took the third team and beat the starters. Everyone called Jimmy Butler toxic, but he's been proven right. The Timberwolves hasn't even sniffed the playoffs since Jimmy Butler has left that team. And Cat, the organization may look at him and be like, yo, we traded away Andrew Wiggins. Don't think that you're safe here. And if you look at the two guys, Marcus Mariota and Andre Drummond, it wouldn't be an absolute upgrade, so they wouldn't start initially. But if the starter in their position underwhelms, they could see significant playing time. While Mariota is more athletic, Derek Carr is a better thrower. But look at the league. It's moving towards athletic quarterbacks. Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, Josh Allen, Carson Wentz, Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, Ryan Tannehill. Those are just quarterbacks who made it to the playoffs. We're not even talking like, Kyler Murray or the Cam Newtons or the other players who have lots and lots of mobility. And when you look at Andre Drummond, he's a better defensive player, but Towns is a better offensive player. But if you look at Minnesota, defense killed Minnesota this past year. They allowed the third most points per game in the NBA. So if Towns doesn't look like he's getting the job done, Drummond in this fake scenario would start. Number 4, you have Nick Foles to Chicago. That's like Kyrie going to Philadelphia. Look, early in their careers, they both were successful but had their limitations. Yes, Nick Foles did go 19-16 in first year and threw 53 touchdowns, only 27 interceptions, but he only completed 60% of his passes. If he did that during the season this year, that would rank 30th out of all qualified quarterbacks. And he posted an 87.3 passer rating, which will rank 22nd. Irving, on the other hand, in his first 3 years, he averaged 21 points, 6 assists, 4 rebounds. He had 2 All-Star appearances, 1 Rookie of the Year, and the Cavaliers' record, 78 and 152. Now, they both performed big in huge moments. In 2017, Nick Foles, on that Magic playoff run, he went 3-0, completed 73% of his passes, threw for 971 yards, 6 touchdowns, 1 pick, and a 116 passer rating. In the playoffs from 2015 to 2017, Kyrie Irving averaged 24 points, 5 assists, shot 47% from the field, and 88% from the line. And then as that was starting to go on and there was starting to be division and people wondering, where are they going to go? People started to wonder, is Kyrie more important than LeBron? Is Nick Foles more important or better than Carson Wentz? And then you saw the depreciation in value. In 2018, when Foles went to the playoffs, people say, Nick Foles was so great in that playoffs after the double doink and almost beating the Saints in New Orleans, but he only completed 61% of his passes, threw 3 touchdowns to 4 interceptions, and had a 71 passer rating. Yet people were debating that he should stay and Wentz should go. Kyrie Irving, he was known as a locker room cancer, and Boston, honestly, if you looked at them, they performed better without him than they did with him. He was still a great player, but if you look at that team, they didn't really gel as much when Kyrie was on the floor as they did when he was off of it. Now, Foles and Kyrie, they would replace the player they would replace. It would be an improvement, but it may not necessarily affect how successful that team is. Look, Nick Foles is obviously a better passer than Trubisky, but Matt Nagy made the offense for Trubisky. And let's not forget that last year Nick Foles got benched for a 6th-round pick because he went 0-4. Remember, he went 0-2, got hurt, came back, went 0-2 again, and then got benched. And Mitch Trubisky, despite all of his flaws, he did beat the Cowboys. So it's not like he's just a terrible quarterback who he can't win. He can win. He just doesn't do it enough. When you look at Kyrie Irving, yeah, Kyrie Irving would be a better shooter. He would be much better offensively than Ben Simmons would. He's definitely better at shooting the ball, and he's more offensively diverse. But he doesn't run the offense as well, nor does he defend as well. And if you look at Brooklyn when they had Kyrie, they weren't that impressive. It was an 8-12 record, which isn't that much of a far cry from the current record that they have right now. And finally, to wrap it all up, you have Dante Scarnecchia's retirement from the New England Patriots. That is like Chip England's retirement. Now, Dante Scarnecchia, if you don't know, he at the time was New England's offensive line coach, and he's probably the greatest assistant/position coach that the NFL has ever seen in its entire existence. I mean, think about it. He's the reason that Tom Brady stays upright. And he doesn't just focus on offensive line. He's focused on offensive line, special teams, defense. He's been one main cog that has kept the Patriots going and going and going throughout their 20-year dynasty. Chip England, for all sports fans who care about assistant coaches, everyone knows that Chip England is probably the best shooting coach of all time. Look at when he first came to the Spurs in 2005 or 2006 season. They were the third worst shooting team from the free throw line at 70%. Just 2 years later, they were an at least average free throw shooting team at 76%. And look at the players that he's helped. He helped Kawhi become more comfortable shooting. He helped all of the Spurs greats become more comfortable shooters. That's just what he does. That's how he operates. That's how he manages to get the best out of the players. And honestly, I hope Dante Scarnecchia has a terrific retirement, better than he had as a career. And he had a really, really great career. Now, I was talking to the guys, and, we were talking, it was like, what would NBA players be as rappers, we were thinking about it, and I was like, I'm going to make a podcast topic after this. Because think about it. There's no bigger mesh in American pop culture than basketball and hip-hop. You have viral hit Mo Bamba, Jay-Z with the Brooklyn Nets and the 2K soundtracks. You have Damian Lillard, who's a mesh in himself. The rappers sitting courtside at basketball games. Rappers and athletes forming friendships really before social media, but especially now with social media. I mean, there's that thing going on. There's been like a constant mesh. So with that being said, here are 8 NBA players. Well, it's actually 9, but here are 9 NBA players and their hip hop artist comparisons. Number 1, you have LeBron, who is Jay-Z. When it's all said and done, and they're done with their crafts, LeBron with basketball and Jay-Z with rapping, they would have a seamless transition from their primary job into philanthropy. Jay-Z, he has the Sean Connery Foundation. He runs the Brooklyn Nets. He works for the NFL. LeBron, the I Promise School, Black Lives Matter movement, NBA player empowerment, the More Than the Athlete platform. And some regard them as the greatest in their craft. Others, not so much. With 2, you have MJ, who is Biggie. Now, they both were amazing early, but truly took off once they got with the right people. MJ, once he got Phil and Scotty, that's when he started seeing them titles coming in. Biggie, once he got with Puff, and they started collaborating together, that's when you really started seeing Biggie hit big. Now, there's a widespread support of them being the greatest rapper ever, and there's a huge what-if factor that surrounds the career. With Biggie, it's what if Biggie didn't pass so soon? With Jordan, it's what if he didn't retire after the first or even the second three-peat? How many titles would he have won? How many extra titles would he have won? If he doesn't retire after the first three-peat, does he even go on the second three-peat? There's a lot of what-if questions with both of these guys. And another thing of note is their legacy has lasted long after they left the craft, and they will continue to last. Listen to New York music now. You can still hear that Biggie influence, and people all around the world still listen to Biggie's music. Michael Jordan, he has the Jordan shoes. His impact will probably be felt for the rest of our lives. Jordan is probably the most popular shoe brand in the world. So, there you go. With 3, you have Kobe. Kobe is Tupac. They're both beloved California legends. And they're not even from there. Tupac didn't even move to Cali till he was 17. He moved from Baltimore. Kobe was drafted to the Lakers when he was 17 and he came from Philly. But despite all that, they're still beloved by the West Coast. Now, their name is often brought up as one of the greats, and their legacy will continue to live on long after their unfortunate passing. Rest in peace to both Kobe and Tupac. They were both just great. I mean, you had Kobe and his life after basketball, which was becoming a, WNBA ambassador and doing these basketball camps. You had Tupac, who was doing both gangster rap and conscious rap, talking about, the injustices that he saw in LA and racial injustice and economic injustice and disparity. And they both really took the craft that they were blessed with and did more with it. So, there you go. 4, you have Steph and Clay. They are Drake and Future. They're both solid separately, but together, they might just be the greatest tandem of this current era. Now, you have Steph, who would be Drake in this sense. They revolutionized the craft. Steph made shooting threes, cool. Drake made pop rap, cool. When you look at Clay is Future. They're often underappreciated, but can get crazy hot for periods of time. And this, regardless of whether the other star is there or not, they typically don't change their style. The other star, depending on, if you look at Drake, who would be Steph, look how much different they play when their second star is not there. Here's the prime example of this point. Drake doesn't do Hotline Bling with Future. But Where You At by Future featuring Drake fit perfectly on the Dirty Sprite 2 album. There you go. Number 5, you have Jason Tatum. Tatum is YB and Cordae. Both are young stars who came in as part of a group but have established themselves as solo acts. Tatum, he still is a part of that young Celtics core that included him, Jaylen Brown, Terry Rozier, Marcus Smart, Isaiah Thomas, Gordon Hayward, Al Horford, all those guys. And he kind of has emerged from that group as the one. Cordae, he came in with the YBN group and kind of formed his own lane and kind of established himself as the one. Now, despite the prevalence of other hot young stars, they really stand in a league of their own. And that's because they're underrated due to a lack of experience, but they enter the craft with a level of polish that is extremely rare for the youth. I mean, look at Cordae. Cordae is 22 and he already has 2 Grammy nominations, and he's getting compliments from Eminem and Lil Wayne and all the greatest and some of the greats in rap from his project. And he's only 22. Tatum's only 22, and he's already been the all-star, and he's arguably the leader of that Boston Celtics team. Look how he performed against LA in LA. That was something magical. Now, move on to number 6, you have Shaq. Shaq is Lil Wayne. They are one of the most dominant forces in their craft when they want to be. They have a lot of interests separate from their craft. Shaq with acting, rapping, the numerous endorsements that he has. With Wayne, he has his business ventures like Truck Fit and his record label. He likes skating. He's really into sports. He contributes a lot on Undisputed with Skip and Shannon. And there's really health concerns that really swirl around their career. With Shaq, he was often overweight or out of shape when he would come into games. And Lil Wayne has his seizures. I pray for both of them. I hope they all are well and all Warriors will be well. But there you go. Number 7, you have Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant is Kanye West. they both have really complicated relationships with the media. I mean, you have Kevin Durant, snapping at people on social media. Kanye West, how he is with TMZ. But despite all of that, the media still lauds them as greats. But at times, that same media can strike a nerve. They both have experienced success, but are currently on a self-gratifying journey. Kanye was already successful as a rapper and could have kept doing rap. But instead, he's deciding to make his rounds and pay his dues as a gospel artist. You have the whole MAGA thing with Trump, and Kanye's just on a journey right now. He's not exactly who he was when he started, and he's trying to figure out what he wants to be. Durant, on the other hand, he left OKC to win, he left OKC to win, went to Golden State, won 3 titles, and was like, it's not exactly what I wanted. So now he's going to Brooklyn to hopefully find that gratification that he was looking for that he seemingly didn't find in Golden State. And nobody truly knows what they want, if it's anything at all, and nobody truly knows what motivates them. The only thing that people know make Kevin Durant tick is Russell Westbrook. And even then, that was back when he was on Golden State and was perceived as the villain of OKC. What truly makes Kanye West tick outside of TMZ? What keeps them going? What drives them? What fuels them to become the greats that they are? And another thing is, they're still regarded as the greatest to ever do it. So, there you go. And finally, at number 8, you have Vince Carter, who is Snoop Dogg. If it was possible, both of these guys would be collecting a pension check from the craft if they could. They're widely respected by old and new fans and old and new rappers / basketball players. They serve as a sage for generations to come after them. You have Vince with his time in Memphis and Sacramento and most recently Atlanta, who was just filled with guys who were younger than 25. And then you have Snoop, his mentorship of younger artists, his stuff that he does with his son and the stuff that he does on the West Coast and keeping the music movement going forward. And honestly, they could get a job anywhere in their craft that they want. If Vince Carter decides, I want to go into coaching, he would have no problem finding a job. If he says, I want to go into broadcasting, he would have no problem finding a job. Snoop already has jobs everywhere. He's on TV, he does movies, he does rap still. Snoop could really go anywhere he wants and apply for a job that's related to music, and he'll probably get it right on the spot. And if it's in the entertainment industry, he probably wouldn't have to try that hard. All right, now moving on to my final topic. Now, everyone's been ranking the NBA playoff teams based on where they rank as far as 1 through 22. But I don't feel like enough light is being shed on the 8 non-playoff teams, the teams who have all these young pieces and don't know what to do with them and don't know how to progress them and don't really know where they go forward from here. So here I am, non-playoff teams. I'm your savior. I will give you the love that you deserve. Now, there were 8 non-playoff teams: Charlotte, Chicago, New York, Detroit, Atlanta, Cleveland, Minnesota, and Golden State. Some of these teams are dead in the water. Others have tremendous upside. So I'm going to rank these teams 8-1 from who really has the most hope going into next season and who pretty much is going to repeat this season next season. This is not necessarily completely based on what happened this season, but it does go into it. Some of it is based on what pieces do you have? How did you develop your young guys? What are your young guys doing? How easy are your problems to fix, etc., etc. So with that being said, let's go with number 8. Number 8 is the New York Knicks. They finished 12th in the East, 1.5 games from last place. They went into 2019 with lofty expectations, as New York always does. They're like, we're going to get KD and Kyrie or Kemba Walker, and then to top it all off, we'll get Zion Williamson. And You leave the 2019-2020 season with Marcus Morris as your leading scorer. Oh, he's a Laker, by the way. Your biggest problem is there's no easy way up. Who is your coach going to be? That's the first question. Because you had Fizdale. Fizdale was liked by players, fans, and executives, and you fired him. Mike Miller, who came in to replace Fizdale, has had the best team win percentage since Mike Woodson, and you're not committed to him. There's no quick fix coaches on the market. You have to build with someone. You can't keep finding these quick fix coaches because all of them are already on teams. Look, the Knicks haven't had a coach tenured for 3 or more years in this entire decade. So, look, if the Knicks want to find a way out of this, first you need to find what coach is going to help them dig out of this hole. Next, who have you developed? I mean, look, you have R.J. Barrett, who was your first-round pick this year. 14 points, 5 rebounds. Solid. But he shoots 40% from the field, 32% from 3, 61% from the line, and has the lowest box plus minus of the players on his team with 1,000 or more minutes played. And he's last in total win shares. Then you have Kevin Knox, 2018 first round pick. He had a solid rookie year. 29 minutes played, 13 points, 5 rebounds. He shot 37% from the field, 72% from the line. And then how do you reward him? By cutting his playing time by 40%. Now, in 2019, he only averages 6 points, 3 rebounds, and shoots worse in every single category. And now he has the fewest win shares out of the entire first round of that 2018 draft. Then move on to Frank Ntilikina, who was your 2017 first round pick, who you drafted over Donovan Mitchell and Bam Adebayo, by the way. But anyway, then he's only averaging 6 points, 3 assists, 2 rebounds with little increase in his production. He's improved his shooting efficiency, which is nice. His 2-to-1 assist ratio is nice, but yet you can't even commit to him. So who are you trying to develop? You're not looking for a coach who's going to help you rebuild, and the players who would help you in the rebuild, aka your young players, you're not putting the time in to help them develop. So what do you expect to do? Free agents aren't coming to New York. They're now choosing Brooklyn over you because Brooklyn has more playoff appearances in the past 5 years than you have, and you're still the bigger market. So if you can't find a way to either develop your draft picks, find a coach who can help you rebuild, or get some random marquee star talent that nobody knows about who would be willing to come to New York and willing to take that team somewhere, then you're dead in the water for the 2020-2021 NBA season. I'm going to just call it like I see it. Now, in 7th, you got the Chicago Bulls. They finished 11th in the East, 3 games from last. They were last in rebounding. They were a mediocre shooting team. And they had an average defense, which for their positioning isn't that bad. But their only really all-star level player in Zach LaVine, he wants to leave. And you have a nice young core in Markkanen, Wendell Carter, Zadaransky, and Kobe White. And Thaddeus Young is a steady veteran presence. But outside of that, that's just 5 players. I'm not completely sold on Chicago's depth just yet. Not just yet. 6th, you have the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, I know they finished last in the East, but they have something that they're good at. They out-rebounded their opponents in 37 games, which tied for 12th in the league. And the acquisition of Andre Drummond will help that. Kevin Love, his level of commitment to the team is questionable, but they still have good players on that team. My differential between Chicago and Cleveland is if you take away the best player, which team is better? And clearly, it's Cleveland. They have Colin Sexton, Darius Garland, Chetty Osman, Kevin Porter, solid young core players. Then you have Andre Drummond, who is a really solid big man. Then you still have Tristan Thompson and Kevin Love if he wants to commit to the team. They're still there. So they have a nice rotation of players who they can rely on. Their biggest thing moving forward will be who's going to be the coach. Who's going to be the coach? You will see that's pretty much a trend for the majority of this team is you don't know if the coaches who were there this year are going to be there next year. So if these teams have to go into a rebuild, who can you rely on to undertake that rebuild? Now, this next team doesn't have that problem, and that is the Detroit Pistons. Now, the Detroit Pistons finished 13th in the East, but they're a half game out of last place. They're not a good rebounding team. They finished second to last in rebounds per game, and getting rid of Andre Drummond didn't really help at all. But they have solid 3-point efficiency. They rank 9th in the league in 3-point percentage. And they have the right coach for a rebuild. Look, Dwayne Casey, let's not forget what Toronto looked like when he got there. In his first 2 seasons, he had a combined record of 57-91. Then over the next 5 seasons, Casey averaged 53 wins and finished in the top 2 of his division all 5 years. Look, I know he didn't go to the finals. He didn't end up winning the finals for Toronto, but he was there and he led that team. It's not his fault that him leaving Toronto was synonymous with LeBron leaving the East. Because I'm telling you now, even if Kawhi had went to Toronto and LeBron had stayed in Cleveland, if he had a solid team around him, Toronto were not getting past LeBron and the Cleveland Cavaliers. I'm telling you that right now. And the Pistons also have solid veteran talent combined with loads of young talent. You have Derrick Rose and Blake Griffin to steady the ship during the rebuild if they decide to undergo one. And you have young players like Luke Kennard, who averaged 16 points on 40% from 3. Christian Wood, in his last 13 games, averaged 23 points, 10 rebounds, shooting 56% from the field, 40% from the 3, and 76% from the line. Sven Mikhailiuk, remember him? LeBron kicked him out. Oh, he's averaging 9 points and 40% from the 3. Bruce Brown, solid shooting guard, 9 points, 5 assists, 4 rebounds on 44% from the field. So Pistons have the players around necessary to do what they need to do for a rebuild. It's just a matter of whether or not the Pistons will commit to letting Dwayne Casey oversee that rebuild. That will be the biggest test for this team. Now, coming in at 4, I have the Atlanta Hawks. Yes, I know Atlanta was tied for last in the East. I know. But I still have faith in them. Did you know Atlanta was the worst team in 3-point percentage, only making a third of their threes? Look, they had the 7th hardest NBA schedule in the league, and they relies on opponents' point per game, but they have unarguably a top 3 collection of young talent in the NBA. I mean, look, Trae Young, he's a 30 points a night scorer, 9 assists, 4 rebounds, 1 steal, and he's shooting 44% from the field, 36% from 3, and 86% from the line. Oh, that's James Harden numbers. Not James Harden for his career, but James Harden just at Houston. What about John Collins? John Collins averaged 22 points, 10 rebounds, 1.5 blocks per game. In fact, John Collins was the only player in NBA history to record 10 or more rebounds, to average 10 or more rebounds in a game and shoot 55% from the field, 40% from 3, and 80% from the line. What about DeAndre Hunter? 12 points, 4.5 rebounds, 2 assists. Kevin Huerter, 12 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists. Cam Reddish, 10.5 points per game, 4 rebounds. And all of those players are 22 or younger. Now, Lloyd Pierce may not be the coach for the future, but his team plays hard for him and the players like him. So if you want him to oversee that rebuild, then so be it, because you have a pretty solid golden generation there with a lot of promising young talent, and I would hate to see it wasted. Now, coming in at number 3, I have the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now, the Timberwolves finished second to last in the West, but they did have the 4th hardest schedule in the NBA. They started the season 10-8, but they went 9-37 the entire rest of the way. Now, they are a solid offensive team. They rank top 10 in points per game, and they're also an opportunistic defense as well. They rank top 5 in blocks and steals. And they have some good pieces. I mean, you still have Cat, who is a 26.5 point, 11 rebound player, shooting 51% from the field, 41% from three. You picked up Malik Beasley, D'Lo, who were terrific midseason pickups. Beasley in his 14 games with the Timberwolves had averaged 21 points, 5 rebounds, or 47% shooting. D'Lo averaged 22 points, 7 assists, and 5 rebounds in his 12 games. He also picked up Juan Hernan-Gomez and James Johnson, who were terrific pieces. And yet, you went 3-8 post All-Star break. My biggest thing for the Minnesota Timberwolves is we have to wait and see how this team will perform together. That's the biggest thing, because I don't believe that they're a 3-8 post All-Star break team, but we have to see what they have to offer. They honestly, with the lineup they have now, they have a potential to fight for a lower playoff seed in the West. They really do, but they just need more time together. They need to build up their chemistry. They need to gel better, and I feel like once they get to that point, then their problems will be solved. Coming in at number 2, you have the Charlotte Hornets. Now, they finished 10th in the East and were 4 games from last. They're not a great shooting team. They finished dead last in field goal percentage. They're also last in points per game and last in pace. But they do have a really stable lineup. Think about this. Devontae Graham, Terry Rozier, Miles Bridges, P.J. Washington, Cody Zeller, Bismack Biyombo. That's only 6 players, and those 6 players make up 94% of the team starts, which means they know who they count on, and everyone knows their role. You have Devontae Graham, who made a huge leap from his rookie year to his second year. In his second year, he averaged 18 points and 7.5 assists. The big thing for the Hornets, that why I have them ranked so high, is that their draft picks are finally starting to pan out. Outside of Batum's terrible contract, the thing that was limiting the Hornets the most was the fact that they kept having disappointing lottery pick after disappointing lottery pick. But they're all starting to work out in their favor. P.J. Washington, who they just drafted this year, he's looking solid, 12 points, 5.5 rebounds. Miles Bridges is looking solid, 13.6 rebounds. Malik Monk, coming off the bench, is giving you 10 points, 3 rebounds. And Terry Rozier, who was picked up from Boston, he's looking pretty productive, 18 points, 4.5 rebounds, 4 assists. So the biggest problem that Charlotte had outside of Batum's contract, which was their inability to draft good players, that's starting to look like it's being resolved. So until then, we'll have to see what happens, see if these players continue to keep taking step after step after step, and if they can, Charlotte might be a playoff team either next year or in the years to come. And at number 1, of course, isn't even really a question. It's Golden State. Golden State, they have Stephen Clay coming back. They still have Andrew Wiggins, who they can either trade for pieces or they can keep. Eric Pascal proved himself, made himself be known that he's a player in this league. He averaged 14 points, 4.5 rebounds. Draymond Green, say what you want, but we all know he's at his best when the team is firing on all cylinders. So in Stephen Clay, who's essentially had the whole season to rest, if they come back and they're even 95% of what they were, like, Golden State is a top 3 seed next year. And not to mention, they potentially have their own number 1 overall pick as far in Minnesota's first round pick, which is top 3 protected, which means if Minnesota falls outside the top 3, that lottery pick is going to Golden State. And like, you have Damian Lee, who averaged 12 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists. Jordan Poole, Marquise Chris, all have shown that they could provide the depth that was missing in the 2019 finals. So if you look at that right there, that's already 10 players who Golden State can count on if they need to. Stephen Clay, Andrew Wiggins, Eric Pascal, Draymond Green, Damian Lee, Jordan Poole, Marquise Chris, Minnesota's first round pick, and their own first round pick. So Golden State, I'm not worried about them for next year. If they don't make the playoffs, that would be a shock. Also, out of all of these teams who I've named, Golden State has by far the best front office and the best coach and the best player. So say what you want, but Golden State, there's nothing to worry about for this upcoming year.